is time to make some game picks with Brad Crawford and Chris Hummer, our Week 11 lines coming from Caesars Sportsbook. Let's take a look at your season records, guys, both in the positive still, but man, last week was a tough one. It was hard to find anyone who had a successful week. Chris, what was the toughest game for you think?
Tech TCU was so tough. I thought I was on the right side of that, had a Tech cover. Tech was leading in the fourth quarter, and then Tech does what Tech does. They got really aggressive on fourth down. It cost them, and TCU ended up covering just barely. This was my first losing week all year. I think I ingested a bit too much rat poison, feeling myself too much with my record, but I'm back and stronger than ever and ready to make these picks.
Don't drink the rat poison, but it's comeback season, okay? Just like our first team on the list here. LSU in the driver's seat for the SEC West, looking for a fourth straight win, but not quite on cruise control over to Fayetteville. The Tigers, a field goal favorite on the road, which says Vegas kind of sees this one as a trap game. Brad, what do you think?
Yeah, could someone please clue me in on what I'm missing here? On paper, LSU should be at least a touchdown favorite, given what the Tigers were able to do in overtime against Alabama last week. New SEC West leader. Meanwhile, Arkansas lost at home to Liberty, is having major issues right now at the line of scrimmage, and Sam Pittman, Arkansas head coach, looked downright dejected in that postgame presser after Hugh Freeze went into Arkansas and won. Maybe this should get the upset alert distinction given the line for LSU, but I'm just not seeing it. The Tigers cover and move closer to the SEC championship game in Atlanta.
Brad, I have to admit I'm a little worried about the Arkansas bounce back. They've been so bad the last month that you think they would have to return to normal, return to the mean at some point. But I agree with you. I just don't see Arkansas covering in this game. Arkansas's biggest weakness, at least defensively, is the run. They don't defend the run well at all, and that's what the Tigers and Jaden Daniels have done better than almost anybody in the country this year. They've really stressed teams to their RPO game. They have a really physical offensive line as far as starting so many young people up front. And I think that run game is the difference here. LSU covers and wins in a bit of a shootout, but I really like the Tigers to keep rolling.
Last week, we thought Sam Hartman would bounce back. He did not bounce back. 9 turnovers in the last 2 games, but his Demon Deacons still favored by 3.5 at home to 8-1 North Carolina. The Tar Heels, by the way, can clinch the ACC Coastal with a win. So, Chris, which Sam Hartman are we going to see this week?
Oh, I can't quit Sam Hartman. I really can't. I'm going to roll with him for a third straight week here. I've lost with Wake Forest twice in a row, and there's no way it happens 3 times. Third time's the charm. I think this is a get-right game for Wake Forest. North Carolina's defense is among the worst in the FBS. There is no better cure for turnover woes than playing North Carolina's defense right now. I think Wake Forest puts up a ton of points. They cover this line as a pretty decent Wake Forest defense does enough to hold down Drake May and the North Carolina offense.
Man, Chris, you make a really good argument here. This is one of those lines that kind of makes you do a double take when you first see it, because UNC is the ranked team, top 20 right now at 8-1. Demon Deacons appear to be fading fast the last couple of weeks with back-to-back losses. The Tar Heels are giving up an average of only 8 points in the second halves of games. That's a very interesting stat to me. So this defense, while it has underperformed, that unit does stand up when it matters. This will be a close game in Winston-Salem, and I've got to take the points here with the ranked team. Drake May's the best player on the field. Give me UNC and 3.5 points.
For what it's worth, in the turnover battle here, Drake May on a 3-game streak without throwing an interception. Staying in the Carolinas, South Carolina begins the Orange Crush end of its schedule with the Gators in Gainesville. This line has moved everywhere from 7.5 to 9 early in the week in favor of Florida. Currently, it sits at 8. Brad, the Gamecocks offense brought out some trickery against Vandy last week. What can we expect from Shane Beamer in the Swamp?
Yeah, I'm 7-2 against the spread this season, picking South Carolina games. I really like this team as far as from a betting standpoint, but this is the first time that I really don't have a feel for how the Gamecocks are going to look after, as you mentioned, Grace, finally getting some things going offensively in Nashville. The Gamecocks often have trouble with mobile quarterbacks, have only beaten Florida twice in program history in the Swamp. Shane Beamer told this fan base last week to find some joy after beating Vanderbilt, but the real joy for South Carolina would come this weekend if it handles the Gators. I'm just not seeing it, though. I'll lay the points, and I'll take Florida to cover here by at least 8.
I gotta say, there isn't much joy to be found when you're facing Anthony Richardson on the other side as a quarterback when you're in the defense. And South Carolina's been terrible against the run this year. As Brad mentioned, they're 90th nationally in yards allowed per carry. Running quarterbacks have given them trouble all year, and you're not going to face a better rushing offense this season than you will with Florida, that ranks second nationally in yards per carry. I think Florida does what it does, which is score a ton of points. They're going to give up some points as well, but I don't see South Carolina manufacturing enough points in this game to cover that spread. I like Florida to win and cover at home.
All right, let's go to Maryland at Penn State with the Nits favored by 10.5. It could be a milestone day for Sean Clifford, who needs 16 more passing yards to break Trace McSorley's career passing record. He's also just 116 yards away from becoming Penn State's first 10,000-yard passer. Chris, who do you like here in this matchup?
I think this is one of the best values of the week. If you just look at Maryland and Penn State on paper and remove the team names from there, they're super even. Neither one of them have extreme weaknesses, but Maryland on both sides of the ball is actually slightly better this year, albeit against an easier schedule thus far. I think Penn State probably wins this game at home. I wouldn't put a ton of money on this one, but I think Maryland covers pretty easily. I think these two teams are really evenly matched. Last week was a bit of an aberration for Maryland. They were playing in really windy conditions at Wisconsin against a defense that really shuts teams down. Penn State isn't that good defensively. They don't have the run game to attack Maryland the way Wisconsin did. I like Maryland to cover and Penn State to win by a field goal.
It's always about the weather, isn't it, Chris? Look, Maryland has not covered in 4 straight games this season. Penn State is 6-3 against the number, so that should tell you where I'm leaning in this game. Nittany Lions are still playing for something this season, too, because a 10-2 finish gets Nittany Lions to the Orange Bowl in that New Year's Six. That's what I'd be pushing for if I'm James Franklin in that locker room before this game kicks off. Motivated team shows up Saturday in Happy Valley. Penn State's a very good team at home, beats the Terps by at least 2 touchdowns to cover this 10.5-point spread.
Okay, you guys know I love my trends. To Brad's point, Penn State on a 3-game against the spread win streak, Maryland on a 4-game against the spread losing streak. All right, let's wrap in the SEC West. Lane Kiffin loves his former boss so much that he went out of his way to call Jimbo Fisher a clown a few weeks ago. Kiffin, though, is 0-2 with Ole Miss against Nick Saban. The Rebels hosting the Tide as an 11.5-point home dog, but both teams still clinging to some lingering SEC West title hopes here. So, Brad, what happens?
Surely Alabama isn't going to lose 3 straight games this season, right? That would be like disaster zone for Crimson Tide and those fans there in Tuscaloosa. The Tide are 13-2 against Ole Miss under Nick Saban, averaging 56 points per game against the Rebels over their last 6 games. Now, that much of that means nothing right now because Alabama's front is struggling, and they may have trouble stopping Ole Miss's rushing attack. This is a big number to lay for Alabama, a team that's not playing too well. I picked Alabama to cover against LSU. That didn't go right for me, but I'm going to give Nick Saban and that crew one more shot this season to win me money. I'm taking Alabama and the cover on the road in Oxford.
What did Lane Kiffin call it this week, Brad? Goat poison? Are you just trying to feed Nick Saban goat poison ahead of this game? I'm going the other way. I think this sets up really well for Ole Miss to cover. I can't pick Alabama to lose. They're 7-0 since 2014 after losses in the regular season for a reason. This team does not tend to lose multiple games in a row. I guess 7-1 after the tennis. They're 7-0 since 2014 after that situation, so it doesn't happen often. But Ole Miss has a couple advantages. They're coming off a bye. They have the offense to keep up with Alabama from a scoring standpoint. And frankly, Ole Miss has more to play for right now. Ole Miss is still in the mix for the SEC West. Alabama is all but eliminated after losing to LSU. I think Ole Miss keeps this close. Alabama wins, but Ole Miss covers.
Yeah, I should have said 3 straight road games there for Alabama. They have not lost 3 straight, but 3 straight on the road could be a possibility.
Yeah, last time that happened was the 2005-2006 season. So you are right. It would get very ugly in Tuscaloosa. All right, let's get to our best bets across the board, starting off with Hummer's Hammer.
Yeah, I didn't do much for the people last week, but I did tell you Florida State was going to cover against Miami, and they did so really easily. And I love TCU to cover against Texas this week. Obviously, this is a Gary Patterson revenge game. Gary Patterson, analyst at Texas, going up against his old TCU personnel. Nobody knows them better. But history this season shows that this game is going to be close. TCU's played 5 straight games decided by 10 points or less. 5 of Texas's 7 games this season against Power 5 competition have been decided by a possession or less. TCU has an offense that can punish Texas through the air defensively, probably Texas's only big weakness right now. I think this is going to be a shootout. I do think Texas wins, but I do not see this being a blowout. TCU covers that 7-point line.
Okay, I like it. I like it. TCU has been a part of a bad beat 2 weeks in a row, but you're still putting your trust in this one. What is Brad's best bet?
Despite a strong overall record this season against the spread, it might be time to fade my best bet with back-to-back losses from BYU and Tennessee. Here's hoping that changes this week for you bettors. LSU, small favorite on the road against Arkansas. I like the Tigers -3. I'm just not sure what the Hogs have left in the tank, and the Tigers are still playing for a playoff berth. These teams are going in opposite directions, in my opinion. KJ Jefferson, Hogs quarterback, still banged up. I like LSU to cover in Fayetteville as this week's best bet.
LSU 3-0 against the spread since losing to Tennessee a few weeks ago. All right, thanks guys. Love the picks. Let's make some money this week. Like and share this video, and for more college football content all year long, go ahead and subscribe to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel.